Good evening, everyone. Well, I'm really happy to hear so much chatter. I think the roundtables are a little bit more successful in helping you meet other entrepreneurs, and that's especially important as tonight is our Meet the Entrepreneurs for Social Innovation. So we have a great panel of 3 entrepreneurs that are social innovators for you to ask questions about their experience being social innovators. And just before we get into the panel presentation and the ice-breaking activity, I just want to make a couple announcements. So for those of you who've been following Entrepreneurship 101 from the beginning, you've probably heard us talk about the Upstart competition. Indeed, the deadline is this Friday, February 3rd, at probably the end of the day. We've had some questions about it. We're asking for a 3-page executive summary. You don't have to overthink this. There is on the Upstart page, there is a link that has kind of a guide as to what an executive summary might have in it. It doesn't have to be to the letter. We're just trying to get to know you and your company in 3 pages, sort of the problem that you're solving, and what your solution is. So just tell us about yourself as much as you can. And if you don't have financial forecasts and some of these other things that would go in an executive summary, don't sweat too hard. It's more of an intro. You'll have everybody that applies will have a meeting with an advisor, so they'll get a chance to meet you as well through that. We have an interesting event coming up next week on Thursday, a Mars Best Practices event on social media. It's called Where, What, Who, Smart Social Media for Small Businesses. Every year in Entrepreneurship 101, people say, why didn't you have a session on social media? And it's really hard. We have a lot of topics already. So I hope you guys take advantage of coming to best practices sessions to sort of hone up a bit more on social media, because it's always an always changing area of marketing. In a couple weeks, we will have a marketing communications lecture, which will cover off some of the basics. And lastly, it seems to be entrepreneurship competition time. If you're reading our e-newsletters for Entrepreneurship 101, we have our own competition. Last week we put in there about the Thai Quest competition. This week we'll be putting in information about the Inspire Innovation Network, which is also has an entrepreneurship competition coming up. There's lots of prizes to be won, including advisory services from Mars, IP services, and coverage in the Globe and Mail. The deadline is February 10th for a 1-page executive summary. So check out our E101 newsletter, which goes out Monday or Tuesday, for more information if you're interested in applying for that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator tonight, Vicki Saunders. Vicki works as a senior advisor in our social innovation practice here at Mars for SIG, the Social Innovation Generation. She has co-founded and run 4 ventures in Europe, Toronto, and in Silicon Valley, including Zazango, which is an online platform for consumer and employee engagement focused on sustainability, Kids Energy, the Energy Group, which went public on the Toronto Stock Exchange in 2000, and Impact Nation, a global consulting firm focused on engaging youth to tackle the grand challenges we are facing. In 2001, Vicki was selected as a global leader for tomorrow by the World Economic Forum. She has spoken regularly at events around the world, including the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Women of Influence series in Canada, and the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurs events, as well as the Talberg Forum. So it is my pleasure to welcome Vicki to the stage, and she'll introduce our panelists tonight.
Thank you, Carrie. Hey, everyone. Great turnout tonight. You're going to have an amazing panel. We're going to do a little icebreaker first, but just before we go there, I would love to know how many people here are thinking about social entrepreneurship as an option for them. Cool. Oh, that's great. And also, one of our panelists tonight was an E101 participant, went through the whole thing, took a year, and now is on stage presenting her business. So we're excited to share those stories with you. So it could be you up here in a couple of years. All right, so here's the slide for our icebreaker. You should have a dot for the sector that you're in, education, food, employment, or environment. So we're going to take about 10, maybe 15 minutes. Find someone with a dot the same color, if you'd like, or break the rules and do something different. But find somebody and share your value proposition with them. That's it. Find somebody, share the value prop. We'll be back in about 15 minutes with the panel. Hello. All right. We're going to bring up the panel. Hello, hello. Must be some pretty good value propositions out there.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Just a reminder that we are webcasting. I'm going to ask a few questions of the panel to get things going, and then I'm assuming you guys have a lot of questions, so I'll ask you to come up to the mics when you have your question so that people who are watching online will be able to hear the questions as well. So I'd like to bring up Petra Much from Fifth Town Artisan Cheese Company, Paul Bickler from the Echo Laundry Room, and Seema Pabari from Tiffin. Come on up. Yep.
Okay, is everyone's mics are working? Good.
I think so.
Okie doke. So we're going to start by having each person basically introduce what they're about. So if you could please, we'll start with you, Petra. Tell us what your company does and where did your business idea come from?
Okay. Well, my business is known as Fifth Town Artisan Cheese Company. Maybe some of you have been there or heard of it. We make artisan-style goat and sheep milk cheeses in a sustainable facility. It's Platinum LEED. It's Canada's only Platinum LEED manufacturing facility, and we were Canada's 8th B Corporation. And just for scope and scale, since that's always of interest, annual revenues, we opened in 2008. We grew to 1.5 million after 18 months in annual revenues, and we're about a 4,800 square foot facility, and I can tell you more about that later. In terms of inspiration for the business, it really came about because I became a mom. I know that sounds not an MBA type of answer, but after 18 years of corporate executive life and a lot of travel, one child, decided that wasn't going to allow me to be the kind of mom I wanted to be. So entrepreneurship seemed to be a good pathway. And why cheese? I have no background in dairy, no background in rural life. I lived in New York and Toronto. I didn't even know you could milk a goat until we decided to get in the cheese business. I did learn how to make cheese, though, and investigated the industry and learned that there was a really good opportunity to build a dairy in Prince Edward County, which had 32 wineries by then, and no artisanal cheese. It did have one village cheddar maker there, but it seemed like a good marriage of different things. They didn't need another winery, but adding cheese to complement the wine industry seemed like a good idea. So that was the inspiration for it.
Great.
Paul Bickler, and I own the Eco Laundry Room. We have currently 2 locations. Basically what it is, it's a solar laundromat. We heat all our hot water with solar tubes, bullfrog powered. I was looking for a business that could, by using environmental conservation, could make a dramatic impact both on a social level and on a bottom line level. Typically the laundromats are about 30% seating area, so there's seating in my laundry for about 30 people. We offer free wireless, little kids play area, as well as a change table and just a comfort level we wanted to bring to laundry. It's one of the worst experiences people have to do, especially when they're leaving their home. So we wanted to create a social atmosphere, and we've done some pub nights in there and brought comedians in. So just trying to create buzz and give something back to customers as well.
And how did you decide to open up a laundromat?
I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was looking for a business that didn't carry any receivables, was very low in terms of having to have employees and staff, but was something that was recession proof, that could make it through the tough times and the good times. And our second location, we basically opened it right at the bottom of the recession, which got us a great lease rate on a commercial space, but.
Okay, great. And Seema?
And I have, again, in the food sector, just like Petra there, and I have a small boutique lunch delivery company. We deliver Indian vegan food in tiffins, and I'm sure there's somebody in the crowd who doesn't know what a tiffin is. So I've brought my tiffins here. So that is a tiffin. It's a little stainless steel lunchbox, and in the city of Mumbai, about 250,000 of these are delivered each day from homes to people in offices. My meals are made in a restaurant, and we deliver them at lunchtime to hungry people in the downtown core. I am actually the person that we spoke about. I quit my job at the end of 2008, very similar to Petra's story. I had a child and my corporate life did not allow me to have breakfast and dinner with him. And so I decided to leave and do something that was more conducive to being a mom. And I attended the Ent 101 series over here for a whole year, put my business plan down, learned everything I could, and I think it was about 12 months after I quit my job that I started Tiffin Day, after networking with a lot of social entrepreneurs. So my business, I'm a Mars client. My business is a for-profit corporation with a triple bottom line. Social hiring and environmental sustainability are a huge part of the business model, as the money is. Our meals are vegan. It's a plant-based menu. The meals are delivered into Tiffins. There's nothing in there that ends up in the garbage. You use your own spoons. It's a litterless meal. It's a paperless organization. The only thing that we print out is the delivery note that has to go on the bag to identify where we're delivering it. We, in the months when we can, in the warmer months, we deliver our meals in the downtown core using an electric-powered rickshaw bike. Tested that all summer myself, and yeah, that is the way to go in the downtown area. It's a little three-wheeler e-bike, the cutest little bike, but the most efficient way to get in and out of the downtown core. And I'm just in the process of establishing my own location and getting my social hiring agenda going. So delighted to be a part of this.
Right. So one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur is when you get your idea, then how do you get someone to pay for what you've got? So I'd like to hear from each of you how you got your first client. If there's a story there, how you got your first client or your first revenue. Paul, why don't we start with you?
Basically bootstrapping. Printed up flyers and we started up in Peterborough, which is a huge university town, very diverse community as well. So I went to bars, I went to the university, I went everywhere that there were people, exchanging flyers with other businesses, put in a community board in our business where I would post their flyers, and they would take my flyers. So basically, I think our advertising budget was about $100 and we probably had $90 left over. I'm a firm believer in networking. I network 2 or 3 nights a week currently, and it's just a matter of going where people are and mixing with people, finding out what they do, letting them know what you do, and just educating the public in the best way you can.
Petra, how about you?
Yeah, not dissimilarly, but maybe different in terms of scale, because building a dairy is a very capital-intensive exercise. You have to acquire land, get approvals, go through a construction process, but also we dealt with 9 ministries and 32 regulatory acts to get the business going. So we started incorporated in 2003, but we started marketing our business right thereafter. But we didn't have any cheese yet. We didn't have a building. We didn't have any land yet. But part of the key to the good takeoff, I think, was that people thought we were there for a lot longer than we actually were. So the learning out of that, and in fact, one of my favorite stories to tell is going to a cocktail party downtown here and having someone come up and say, when I said, what do I do? I said, well, I'm working on building a dairy, and we're going to make artisan cheese. And this lady said, I've had your cheese. It's so wonderful. You should try it. And of course, in a group setting with everybody having their wine, what was I to say? You know, there's no way you could have had my cheese. So I just politely said, yes, it is really good. Thank you. And I hope you all buy it. It's very hard to get, though. But the point of the story is, I agree, networking and being out there, you don't need money to do that. I would say that my personal experience is if you have a long-term vision and a scale expectation for your business, is to spend the good money, whatever money you have and can spend, on a really good designer to develop a really good logo and a very good word mark that is going to be flexible and that will carry you through the various phases of your business as it expands. I think that's one of the best decisions we made. People sometimes in the early stage see that as the frivolous part because you don't even have a product yet, but that is your product. And when you're raising money through investors and through banks, if it doesn't look, you know, sophisticated and you're trying to raise $3.5 million, well, so that's part of what you have to invest in, I think, to develop something that will last you the lifetime of the business, a good brand image.
Okay, great. Seema, how about you?
Mine was a little different, and Toronto is actually a very exciting place to be when it comes to food and ethnic foods. There's so many festivals and venues for a food company to start out with. To start out in Toronto is very exciting. What I did was got a booth at Nuit Blanche. And lots of people came by and they were quite interested in, a tiffin delivery business. But what the stroke of luck for me was Matt Galloway of CBC Metro Morning was one of the guys who went by, and for some reason the tiffin fascinated him, and he had me on the radio, and I was a little embarrassed because to a South Asian, a tiffin is like Tupperware. I didn't know what all the fuss was about. He had me on the radio, and it opened up doors from there. We actually got, within the first 3 months, a lot of press coverage from the Globe and Mail, CBC TV, CBC Radio, City TV, and it opened up doors right away.
Cool.
Which was a problem in itself because I wasn't scaled up, and that's another issue that we can talk about, yes.
Okay, great. So Petra, what do you think your greatest key to success is as an entrepreneur?
Key to success?
Yeah.
Well, I put it, certainly everyone's probably going to say networking and getting out there, but I would say the other thing is being persuasive and learning how to sell, because in the early days, you're really selling is your idea and you're trying to raise money. And if you're not good at doing that, then it's really hard to get off the ground. So understanding how money works and why people invest and what they're looking for, and being realistic about that and being a little bit bold as well, I think is one of the keys to early stage success, is trying to get enough money so that you don't run out of steam too quickly. And I would say that that's a key thing. Now, once you're up and going, that's financing it. Once you're up and going, key to success are many of the operational things that people will talk about. Have a good product, have good marketing, and all those other things. But getting there when you're first starting off, it's about being a good salesperson.
Paul, how about you?
Couldn't agree more. Sales is... I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and basically tagging behind my father at the young age of 10 or 12, going to his job. And he could basically fit in. He was a chameleon, and I like to think of myself as that. He could fit in with any crowd. He had a trucking company at his last venture. He could sit in with all the drivers and be comfortable. He could also talk with senior executives, and then he could also talk about building equipment. So being able to have what he used to tell me was a confident humility. Being very confident in your business and what you're selling, but being humble. Nobody wants to listen to a braggart. So you're gently trying to persuade people that what you're doing is something that they should need or try. And the networking as well, you've got to be able to talk to people. If you're shy, you need to find a course that gets rid of that from you, because you've got to talk about your business, you've got to leave your business, and that's how you get people in. Especially with startups. We opened up in Toronto, I got CP24 breakfast to come in. I wanted to get full press coverage, and you have to make a lot of calls and visit a lot of people to get those type of things.
Seema, how about you?
I'm a planner, and I told you it took me a whole year to figure out what I wanted to do, but I think I planned this business out in phases. Although it's food, my business is really logistics. It's about delivery. And we have 1 hour to deliver, all the meals that come in a given day. And I needed to figure this out. How could we do it? It's done in Mumbai. Can we do it in the city of Toronto? 1 hour, deliver all your meals at lunchtime. So I set my business plan so that it was done in stages. And I believe not rushing that process actually helped me out. The first stage was really figuring out the logistics. The second stage was doing more outreach through farmers markets and setting up my own retail location. And the third one is expansion. So I'm in the second phase of my business now.
Okay, great. So being an entrepreneur, you always face unexpected challenges. All the time there's stuff coming up when you're trying to grow your business. So I'd love it if each of you could just give us an anecdote from a tough time that you went through and how you dealt with that. Petra, you want to?
Oh, just one?
Or many. Take your time. We've got another 60 minutes here.
Yeah, well, yes, that's right. I'll pick one that I think might be, everybody goes through operational challenges and the various fits and starts. You market, then you figure out you got to make the product, and then you don't have enough product to meet the market. Then you borrow more money to get more inventory, to sell more people. Now you need even more people. So there's that kind of thing. But I would say the one thing that I overlooked in starting up my business was underestimating the importance of, and I don't know if there's any lawyers in the crowd, and they didn't give me anything to say this, but get yourself a good lawyer to determine how you want to set up your operation, whether it's the usual types of formats, your profit, not-for-profit, and so on and so forth. But more importantly, your articles of incorporation, your bylaws. If you have shareholders or partners, make sure you have a dissolution or shotgun clause built in at the early stage, because to leave it till later, and we did, we were all in love with our idea, and we loved each other, and we were happy. But then came a time when that was no longer the case, and we didn't have the structure in place to deal with shareholder disputes. And unfortunately, that was our tsunami, and still going on today. But I would advise getting, no matter how small your business is, I did the $1,000 online vetted by somebody incorporation, or just under the Incorporations Act thing, and I'm sure many corporate lawyers, if there were any in the room, could tell you one of their biggest areas of business is dealing with partnership disputes and shareholder disputes. So get that right from the beginning.
A lot of trouble with government, either through regulations. We had planned when we opened our second store to do a very aggressive 10-week from getting the keys from the landlord to opening up. We had done it in 12 weeks in Peterborough. The only problem when we started here in Toronto, there was something called a strike, and permits were not coming out. We couldn't get inspections. It ended up taking us about 5 months, which was a lot longer than we had thought. So it was something we didn't plan on. These things happen. It's just, you just figure a way around it. We did as much of the work as we could to keep costs down, negotiated with our landlord to do a lot of the work ourselves in lieu of free rent, and we managed to get about 10 months free rent. So in hindsight, it was a great idea, because we would have really been behind the 8 ball. But you can't really figure out government. The things that you think will go well won't. The things that you think are going to go bad work out. It's just being prepared to pick up your boots and just say, okay, I've got a problem. How do I solve it? Worrying about it certainly doesn't help. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, is just different regulations, or just being held up by things that are out of your control.
Sam, how about you?
Well, mine came in the early days, as I alluded to. We got all that press coverage very early on. We weren't scaled up, or we hadn't tried our processes that thoroughly, and we were getting all these orders. And the company that I partnered with to do our overflow deliveries is a social enterprise, another Mars client called Goodfoot Delivery. They hire people with developmental disabilities. It's a courier service here in Toronto, and they do our overflow deliveries. So Goodfoot was with me from the onset, because we were getting all these orders. Now, with a social enterprise, the training has to come gradually and slowly. That is a reality of any kind of social hiring. And I just found we were killing ourselves in the early days. So what I decided, made a very difficult decision in the second or third week, to cut our orders and limit it to 25 to 30 orders a day. That meant limiting my revenues, but it was a reality I had to face, and that was tough. But that allowed us to scale this up properly without disappointing the clients, and it got Goodfoot couriers used to my system. I was comfortable with them, and it was just something I had to pull early on. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Great. I think I'll ask one more question, and then I'll throw it out to the audience. So get your questions ready. Now, I'm wondering about sort of team and business partners. And Petra, I mean, you alluded to this a little bit early, but what have you learned about assembling a great team?
Well, assembling a great team, at least for my experience, was the team members you assemble. In my experience, all of my team members were people I had met over the course of trying to build the dairy, and logged in my mind as somebody who was good, bright, special, interested in the cause. So when I was ready to hire, I knew who I wanted to go after. And I guess the only other comment I can say is that I didn't hire experience. There were lots of people who came out of the dairy woodwork who said, I can do that, I can do that. The only person I hired in our founding staff of 5, and we grew to about 19, is a dairy farmer who had sold his quota and had never worked in an organization before, had grade 12 education, and but was smarter than I've said. If he had been in another time or place, he probably could have run RIM today in a better way. But he was amazingly bright and facile with technology. All the other 3 and myself, none of us came from the dairy industry. We had a PhD in gastroenterology, semi-retired. We had a public artist who some of the artwork you see on university and at City Hall, you know that if you've been to City Hall, that mosaic that's up there, he did that. He had never worked in a dairy, but he's semi-retired and decided he wanted to do this. So, and because of that, we were able to see things differently and do things creatively that I think if I'd hired what the industry normally expects to hire in those positions, we would have turned out to be a very different place. So assembling a great team, I think, might mean putting aside any biases you may have towards experience only or that sort of thing, and hire just great minds, enthusiastic people, and energetic, creative people who believe in what you're doing, and you're off to a good start.
I look at it in 2 ways. There's hiring your staff and there's partnering up with people. The current 2 partners I have with the laundry, it's a husband and wife, friends of mine since university days. He's a technical guy, common sense. He can build anything, he can figure anything out. Awesome builder, great renovator. I'm all thumbs. I can hold the hammer the right way and that's about it. His wife basically wanted nothing to do with it but to do the books, which neither of us even wanted to see the books. It was just, I don't want to sit in an office, I don't want to handle accounting. He, for instance, he wants no publicity whatsoever. I think there's still people in Peterborough after 5 years that don't know he's an owner, even though he's in and out all the time. Didn't want to be the face of the company, didn't want publicity, didn't want to deal with press and things like that. So it's really important, from my perspective, to find partners that don't want to do what you want to do, and they have their own special skills. In terms of staff, I found it's always been very beneficial, vested interest. Make them in on profit sharing. Our laundry here in Toronto, we just turned over the wash and fold to a lady, and I basically said, you charge $3 for the customer to do their laundry. You put $1 into my machine, the $2 is yours. It makes her come to work every day. She knows that she can earn more than a minimum wage job, so she's got skin in the game, and she works harder than I would expect any employee to, and I'm comfortable because I know she's going to be there. I don't have to call her, and it's a nice payback that I know that she's benefiting herself as well, that it's not just the company that's benefiting. So it's different perspectives from different ways of looking at people.
How about you?
I'm just in the process of assembling my team to put into my retail location, and being committed to social hiring, I've targeted a specific community in Toronto. Some of you may know it. It's a community at Victoria Park in Danforth. Very heavy South Asian population. 75% of the women in that community do not work. They are unemployed. And the reason being, English is not their first language, and a lot of them are stay-at-home moms, and kids go to school at 8:30, come home at 3:30, and these women simply cannot find jobs to accommodate that. Now for me, when I looked at that and I looked at my business, what do I need? Well, certainly the one language that we speak in common in the kitchen is Hindi, so my first question to them is, do you speak Hindi? And the second question is, can you roll a roti in 10 seconds or less? Because I can't teach you that. Everything else I can teach you. And if they come with that extra sense of enthusiasm, they're on board. Everything else I can teach them. So I certainly look for certain qualities there. They have a certain need. What they want, these women, they don't want full-time jobs. They want to look after their kids. So they want to work for 4 hours, 5 hours a day, and they want to go home to their kids. What they really want is permanent part-time work. And my business model, that works. I can certainly do it. I'm a lunch delivery service. By 2 o'clock, most of our heavy work is done and they can go home to their kids. When we open up retail, we may need to stagger it because we'll be open for a little longer. So my model actually works for them. Their model works for me. I'm just in the process of getting that team together, and that quality that you can't teach them is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions from the audience? Can you just step over to the microphone, please? We're just trying to tape all of these. And feel free, anyone else who has questions, just line up behind the microphones. And these guys have lots of experience in diverse groups, so ask away.
It's great stories. Congratulations. I have a question. You know, you're all doing great things, making lots of money. What's the business model and how do you make money?
I can start. I sell tiffin meals, and basically it's the food business. My revenue model is a little different right now because it's delivery, but I have 3 revenue streams. One is from the tiffin deliveries, the other one is from outreach at farmers markets, and the third one is retail takeout. So 3 different revenue streams with different margins blended together make my full business model.
But do you sell the tin as well, or you
No,
just
we don't sell the
recycle?
tin. Sorry, we sell the meal. The meal is ordered, and then we go pick it up the next day. My delivery area is very tight. It's in the downtown core, so we're in the downtown every day. It's no big deal to go, to the next building over to pick up the tiffin the next day. We actually have a core group of customers now. Not everyone eats a South Asian meal every day, but my best customers order once a week, and for customers like that, we pick up the tiffin the next time we deliver to them.
Do you have a
once we
menu?
get to know them. We have a menu online. It's a very limited menu, and it changes every day. So on any given day, if you go to our website, we have 1 appetizer, 2 entrees, and a dessert. It's all priced individually. You order whatever you want. You order it online, pay for it online. You get an electronic invoice. As long as your order is in by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we deliver lunch to you the next day at lunchtime.
Your
What's the
website
price
is?
point?
The website is tiffinday.com.
What's the price point? Is it just
Price
cash?
points, if the meal would come within $15 or $16, that's an appetizer and an entree. If your meal is $15 or less, we charge a $5 delivery. So most of my orders are 2 or 3 people in an office getting together and ordering an entree. That's about $12.
Yeah. Basically, we offer 2 services. We offer a wash and fold pickup and delivery, as well as you can come in and do your own laundry. Our price point is actually below market. Our wash and fold service is about 30% below what the average is charging. And same with our self-serve. It's about 20% cheaper than going to a typical laundromat. If you're doing self-serve, you're in and out in an hour. I don't really, for me, it just become the brand. I wasn't getting into this business to make a lot of money. I like making money, don't get me wrong, but I like being self-employed. I've done probably 7 startups throughout my business career. I don't think of it as working. I work probably 15 hours a day, every day of the week. I enjoy what I do. I don't think of it as work. I think of it more as play, and there's always seems to be money in the account at the end of the week. So you got to love what you're doing. If you're getting into a business to make money, there's 2 different types of business owners. There's a person who owns a business, and there's an entrepreneur. If you want to be a business owner, grab yourself a Tim Hortons franchise, you'll make a ton of money. If you want to do something where you think you're giving back and you enjoy what you do, become an entrepreneur, because the freedom is there. I don't have a head office telling me, oh, you have to put in 40 hours a week at your store. I'm going to do that anyway. I just don't want to be told that I have to do it. So get into it for the right reasons and love what you're going to do. If you're going to find out you're going to be stressed all the time, it's better to take a job and have the security.
Okay, business model in a nutshell. We make and sell cheese. The value proposition has 5 elements to it. We make fine cheese, which means we don't make cheddar, we don't make pizza ma's. Everything we make is really hard to make stuff that can only be made by hand. A lot of European out-of-the-way cheeses that you see in mountainsides and farmsteads. Second thing is we are a fair cheese maker, so we own our supply chain for milk. We don't deal with co-ops. We deal direct with the farms, which gives us a lot of quality control. And we negotiate prices. And fair cheese, it's a fair trade approach to the milk contracts. They set their price, and we deal with how that works. The other thing was green cheese, sustainable cheese, safe cheese. We're CFIA certified, and that's important too. And the last thing was county terroir. In terms of channels, our largest, because we deal on a blended margin basis as well, which you have to do when you're boutique-y and high-end. So 50% of our revenue came from our storefront. We're 3.5 hours away from here. The banks thought we would never see a customer at our store. I have a 600 square foot store with a 4-foot dairy case, and we do $500,000 a year through that. And in July and August, we see 5,000 people a week. So don't ever let the location, location is good, but when you're in a rural area, they will come for the story if you have one and know how to tell it. Other channels, so that's retail. In terms of distribution, we're mostly in high-end shops, Pusatiris, McEwen's, stuff like that, high-end restaurants, food service. We recently, last year, got into Sobeys. We struggle with the Sobeys world because we can't make enough to deal with their 87 stores, but they're adjusting because they hate seeing losing customers to the boutiques and the small-scale cheese shops. So we're dealing with, they're learning how to deal with us, and we're learning how to deal with them. And I don't compromise on price. I never have a sale. We have mistakes. It's like handmade anything. Sometimes we have interesting looking cheeses. They don't look right, but they taste really good. We taste, our quality control is in the lunchroom, and if we feel it's good and we're good with it, then it goes on the store shelf. And we started an improv line. We didn't call them mistakes or ends. We call them improv, jazz improv number 1, 2, 3, and people will still come in to this day and say, do you have any of that number 4 left? I say, well, that was a one-time mistake and it'll never happen again. So you got it when it was good. So finding creative ways, so that's how we deal with that. To be in the artisanal business, it's heavy labor and high-priced milk. All my inputs are probably 20% higher than anybody else's, including packaging, because we have green packaging and green labels. Everything's green is more expensive. The only way I can do that is command a pretty high price. So our cheeses retail usually around $80 to $100 a kilo, which, your average cheddar is $20, $24 a kilo. But you have to really know how to work your story to get that price and make what you have super unique. And what we have is very unique. And right out of the gate is we won all kinds of cheese awards, 32 awards and things like that. So the point is that's the business model, highly differentiated, hard to copy. Nobody else could just come in. They could deconstruct my Cape Vessi and make it at another dairy tomorrow. That's not hard to do. But they can't copy the story and the mission and values that we stood for. So we're hard to replicate, and for that, people will pay a price, I guess. So that's the business model.
Great. Thanks,
Good
Petra.
luck to all of
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk about just when did you realize you have a good product before you actually go to market? And if you could just talk about when did you realize before you actually go into the market, or did you go into the market and then start to develop the product and tweak it to become a really good product? When was that moment that you thought, wow, I've got something special, and how can I position it in the market?
Should I?
Go for it.
Because none of us had ever made cheese commercially before, basically I did go out and try to make cheeses at home and try out. Cheese making is a little bit like wine. There's really only 8 recipes in the world. That's it, or like cookies. And everything else after that's a variation on aging and a bunch of other stuff. So once you understand that, you can play with the variables. When we first started, I had a product line that we designed really based on milk supply. Goats only milk they have a certain range. They make most of their milk in the summer, tail off in the winter. Sheep don't milk from November to April, and cows milk all year round, but I was only dealing with goats and sheep. So I had a ton of milk in the summer and very little in the winter. So what do you do with that? Well, you develop a product line where hopefully 50% of what you sell is fresh cheese, like Chev, which goes in and out the door in 48 hours. And then the oversupply, the stuff you can't sell, we put into hard cheese. So we didn't know what our product mix would end up looking like. I thought we would sell more fresh cheese. In the end, people wanted more hard cheese, which was a little hard on the storage equation. I had no idea which cheeses would sell more or less. We just designed them, made up the recipes, started making them. And I could not have told you that Cape Vessi would have been grand champion at the Royal Winter Fair that year. I mean, I had no idea. We submitted our cheeses for awards to get critical feedback. So back to testing and beta-ing and all that stuff. I did go around to the chefs and take my homemade cheeses I made in my downtown condo and say, try this. What do you think of this? And is this the right direction? So I did develop some feedback that way, but I couldn't have told you what would have worked in the end out of 28 options. But I will say this, once we figured out where everybody was going, we ran with that. And then, just was adaptable enough to run with what ended up being a leader out front.
Please.
Entrepreneurs, thank you for your story. I appreciate it. One common thread that I'm getting is that networking was a big part of your strategies, and I'm wondering at what phase in your business planning was it really essential to you? Is it more when you're fleshing out your business plan, you're working on your unique selling proposition, your pitches, and you want to get and tell your story, you're working on your story? Is it more for a warm handshake to get introduced into investors or suppliers or to build a network to support your business? Or is it more for you a marketing tool to get the word out after you've got something solidified in your mind? It's a question for all three entrepreneurs.
Actually, for me, it's all those phases. And right now, I particularly find a lot of support, a lot of any questions that come up. Although I'm an operating business, you have good days and you have bad days, but I've developed my network of other foodies and companies similar to mine, and we're all going through, some are going through similar tough times, and I find my network is actually there as cheerleaders for me. So I found them very important in the early stages, really to develop my pitch and to run stuff by them. But at every stage, you need a network. And right now, we're at a stage where we're just branching out into retail, and it's a very scary proposition for me because we've not done that. My network does have a few food retailers in them, and speaking to them calms me down and allows me to move on. So the network is actually really, really important at every stage.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I found that just opening up a new location, you were heavy into the networking, but I network every day. It's part of my branding. I am the brand of the company. You're always on, you're always engaging to people, whether they're asking about your business or not. You're constantly, it's always in your head that there's always potential customers that you can inform about your business. You're also replacing customers. People move out of the area, new people come in, so you can't just do the flyers when you open and say, okay, I'm done with the flyers, that's it. Updating your website, listening to customers. Before we even started opening, I went and visited 100 laundromats and said, what do you want to see in a laundromat? And that was basically the business plan. It was written on the back of a piece of paper and said, okay, we need these 6 things in it for sure. And we draw people, probably 40% of our business comes past another laundry to come to us. So it certainly says something for what we've done in getting our name out there.
Well, because we're a destination-oriented business, I had to drag people out there. So networking was really important. And I would say networking, because there's a lot of young people in the audience, is a lifelong activity. There are people that helped me in my business who I met in my 20s and when I was in the publishing business. There are people I drew on all throughout my life. So when you think about, I would agree, don't compartmentalize networking. Networking is a lifelong endeavor. And I used to approach everybody I even interviewed for hiring was a potential customer, a potential ally in some way, shape, or form. Stay in touch with them. Every hand shaken has the potential to unlock something you might need in the future or that you can do for them. It has to work both ways. You have to give before you get most of the time as well. So it's a way of life. It's not a thing that you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, this question is directed towards Seema. I'm interested in some of the operations of your business. You referred to the logistical side of your business, and I'm just interested to know what percentage this takes in terms of cost of sales. Like, what are the margins like for that particular side of the business?
On the delivery side of the business, if you do it really smartly, the cost of the delivery is in the labor. You're going to pay somebody an hourly wage to do it. So you got to cut out as much of the cost as you can. And I found getting my rickshaw in cut out the costs. I wasn't taking a vehicle. I wasn't paying for gas. Straight off the bat, if you look at gas, I cut out $75 a week. And you have to figure out the most efficient way of doing it. Now, my delivery is an hour, so the cost of the wage, is just an hour, 2 hours at the most when you look at tiffin pickups. So it's very concentrated. It's not like we're doing the deliveries all day long. We're doing it over lunch hour. So in that case, you could expect margins of 20-25% in food.
Okay, and so what logistical solutions do you look to for that? business?
Sorry, I need you to elaborate.
Is
on
it
that.
something, it's outsourced?
Well, no, we do our deliveries in-house. Our overflow deliveries are outsourced to Goodfoot Delivery.
I
Yes.
see. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
My question is regarding your initial funding for your company. How did you get your initial funding, or did you have any government support, any support from outside of your shareholders, or do you have any suggestions regarding that and stuff like that? Whatever you have to suggest is very welcomed here. Thank you.
Well, I can start, I guess. Basically, it was a third, a third, a third in my case. Well, it started off 50-50. 50% institutional. I don't know if anybody is successful with venture cap or people don't like startups at that stage. They don't like beginnings. So really, it was about leveraging whatever you own. Banks don't ever lend you money. They just tie up what you already own. So, you take your house, you mortgage your house, you borrow some money, and then with that money, you get started. And once you have something to show for, halfway through the construction, then you can get some other money in. So in our case, it was personal, using what you have to get started, but keep because people like to see something happening. Then I brought in BDC. I highly recommend them as a lender. They won't take your house if you default on them. But they are slightly higher interest rate, but they have a mandate that's suitable to new entrepreneurs. So they came in second. They were our institutional lenders. Then to fund growth, because every new business is undercapitalized. I don't care what your business plan says. It always needs more money because there's something that happens along the way. To private equity investors that came along because by that time we had produced a piece of cheese. And so you have to look at your money coming in, your strategy, not waiting for all the money to be there to start. You start with what you can, have something to show for it other than a business plan, and then more and more people sort of say, oh, okay, now I get it, and maybe I'll contribute to it. So that's how. So in the end, it's a third, a third, a third. Institutional, personal, and a third private equity.
Our first store, we got a 5% subsidy for our total costs from the government because we were using solar technology. The other 95% came from basically angel investors. Worked them out a great interest rate that was higher than the market, and they've been happy to carry us through. The second store, we did finance about 85% through a bank loan. Once we had a 2-year track record, they were willing to look at us. The other 15% of the second store, again, went to angels. So we were able to finance 100% of our venture without dipping into personal savings. That was the rainy day fund. My personal savings were if something messes up, this is where I've got to dig into, but I want as much finance room possible. Our next stage is basically looking for investors. I don't want to do any further bank funding. They're very inflexible. We had a government guaranteed loan with our current bank, and they still charge me 2 3/4 points above prime. And I said, I'm a guarantee. If I fail, the government pays out this loan. Why are you charging me over prime? And they said, well, this is our offer. So that for me was my last dealing with banks, and other than having a credit card. But you get creative. If you believe in your idea, you'll find people that are willing either to become a partner with you or to loan money. It's usually at higher rates, but a lot more flexible than banks, and I can always pay down more or borrow more. So it's just your own personal view. Some people like to have money in the game as well, that they don't have to worry about paying off interest, but it depends on the scope of the business as well.
So Paul, was all of your investment, it's all debt financing? Is that
All
correct?
debt financing,
Okay.
yep.
In my case, the first stage, I actually got a little creative. To open up a kitchen, that's capital intensive. So what I did was actually worked with an existing South Asian restaurant in the Gerrard India Bazaar. Now, most of those restaurants open up at lunchtime, at noon. And I decided my business, I needed the food made in the morning, and by 11 o'clock, I'm going to be out doing the deliveries, which is when the restaurant opens up. So I went to one of these places and asked if I could rent space from them, and he agreed. So it actually helped me for the first 18 months. It was a very creative way to get started, but it was easy. I didn't have to put in that big capital investment. Now, I did have to invest money for my rickshaw, for, to hire my staff, for the marketing, for the website, to get the tiffins. There still was an investment that I had to put in, relatively small, and I was able to finance that myself. This second stage that I'm in is retail. I need to set up my own kitchen. This arrangement in my existing location, 2 hours in the morning, I'm actually outgrowing that very quickly. On any given day, I actually have to take less orders than I could, so I need to get into my own kitchen. We actually can't make enough inventory for the farmers markets at this location in the 2 hours in the morning. So desperately looking at this stage to get my own location going. For that, it's going to be 50% my own money and 50%, probably a little bit from the Business Development Corporation, and then taking on an angel investor or a partner. We're looking at whether it's going to be debt or equity financing with that partner. I'm in negotiations right now, but at this stage is the big chunk of financing that I need. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think I noticed a lot of different models up here. I noticed that Petra mentioned that she generally charges a premium and never lost a sale because of price. And I noticed that Paul said that he generally charges a little less than the market rate at his location. And I don't know what SEMA charges yet, but this question is for all three of you. The social media component of your elevator pitch, how does that affect your customer retention? How does that affect your price point? Does it have an effect at all, or is it all location and convenience and good cheese?
So just to clarify the question, you're asking, does social media like Facebook and things like that affect the price?
I was thinking more along the lines of the good you've mentioned that you're doing, the solar-powered laundry room and the ability to put people to work who otherwise wouldn't get to work, and the ability to do something new locally. Mm-hmm. That's primarily what I was thinking about.
Well, if the question is around the role of social media in the success of the business and how does it affect the overall business model, certainly we have, because we're remote and because we depend on destination marketing, social media has been an enormous part of our business. I didn't know anything about Facebook when we started it, but learned quickly. And we leverage all of that. But I also would argue you still have to get out there, as I'm sure everybody has mentioned on many occasions, still have to do the face-to-face, because the way to get people on your Facebook page, unless you're married to them or went up to high school with them, is you show up at events like this and they get an interest in what you're doing and you tell them to go to your Facebook page. So that you still need to be out there personally to drive interest in your social media messages. It's been an important part of how we deal with things. It also helps us explain our story in a very personalized way.
In my case, certainly I have the social and environmental goals as a core part of my company, but if my product wasn't good, I don't think the customers would. I mean, it's a nice story, but if my product wasn't good, they wouldn't buy it. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, actually, Alison Hewitt is there with me, but we had dinner with a social entrepreneur called Liam Black. He was here for a Mars event. And Liam is from the UK, and he took Jamie Oliver's Restaurants International, and he gave me the best piece of advice anybody had ever given me. He sat me down, my business plan was still on paper, and he said to me, "You've got too much going on here." He goes, "Strip out the social hiring part of it, look at your business and see that you've got a good business going, because you know what, all this good stuff that you want to do can't exist without revenue and profit. So get your business model right before you layer in the social hiring." And social hiring is actually very complex. There's a lot more. You're constantly in training. It actually really slows down your business. It's not as efficient, but I have a mandate to do it, and I am going to do it. But you bring it in after you know you've got a good, strong business model. Don't compromise on your business model, because if your business fails, all the social hiring and all the good you want to do in the world is not going to happen. And I think that's the key for a social entrepreneur, to have that as a goal. That's very noble. In fact, I think all businesses should be social business. I mean, if you're making money, what's the point if you're not improving communities and society at large? That's the whole point. So we're the good guys here, but make sure that your core business is solid. That's the only way you can help. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah, the social, what we basically did was, I could see the main problem, and I see this with a lot of the green and sustainable businesses, yeah, but it's more expensive. Not everyone will pay that extra price point, so I made sure that our price point was below market by a minimum of 10%, mainly as a marketing technique, but also to say, I have less costs, I'm passing it on to the customer. Stuff like Twitter and Facebook and a website, we didn't have them in our first location. When we moved to Toronto, a good friend of mine was in that industry and said, get on it, and I'm still shocked to this day. There's 1,300 people following my laundry on Twitter. But it's a great way to get a message out to say, you know, we've got a special right now, but you're not just marketing the business in Facebook and Twitter. It's, you know, I'll throw just odd questions out there. Today, for instance, on my Facebook, I said, you know, what city has 2 of the top 10 NHL scorers? And it's the town I grew up in the Sioux. But if you come across as always trying to sell, people tune out on you. So you're engaging, trying to build relationships, so these customers say, I like being your customer. I'm going to see you through the good and the bad, and I appreciate what you're doing for us as customers. So it's got to be give and take.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Hi, I sort of had a follow-up question actually about the fact that you guys are not only profit-oriented, but you also have social, environmental, sustainability goals in mind. I was wondering, how well did that resonate with investors? Did you find that they were really just focused on the profit aspect alone, or was that sort of, you know, was that sort of the cherry on top that sort of drew them to your business? How did that work into the whole raising capital, part of the startup process?
Well, in my experience, it's changing. 2 years ago when I started, I think social purpose businesses, people with environmental and social goals, it was a quiet whisper. And investors like banks certainly weren't interested. Me being in the food sector, banks were absolutely not interested in financing it. We're in a different space now, and it's certainly a very interesting, viable investment model now, where I had three private angel investors approach me. I didn't approach them. We're in different times, and we certainly heard the Royal Bank announce a fund for companies with corporate social responsibility built into it. We have the B Corporation coming over here through Mars. I think the time for it now is like a nice quiet hum. We need to get to a roar about this. I think we're getting there. It's a good time to be a social purpose business.
I have a finance economics degree, so I did all the numbers before we even opened and presented it to our first investor. And I was very conservative. We've turned a profit since the first month in business. We've never had a loss in any 1 month since we've opened. It was a solid model. It was based on numbers, but the social and the environmental parts just added to that mix to make it a much stronger business that we could see carrying on.
Yeah, when we were raising money, certainly the banks were not interested in all the green stuff, and we have geothermal and solar and wind and all kinds of things built in, and in terms of our energy profile, our waste management profile, all that stuff. So the way they used to look at sustainable energy investments, for example, which are all very capital intensive as well, it requires buying stuff, putting it in the ground, and you can't really repossess a geothermal system. So leasing was not always a great idea. People come up with all these financing models. And the banks would basically only finance the dairy whether it was green or not. It's like a house, if the house is worth $100,000, they'll give you up to $80,000, 75, depending on what the market values are in the area. Well, with a business, it's much lower percentage than that with a building. And if you make it green, they don't, even though that adds to the value of the property, if you look at it that way, they would not increase the value of the property in the future. So valuation was not affected by increased investment to make it a long-term sustainable enterprise, which in the long term, since dairying is very energy intensive, should have reduced prices on our utilities. So, saving $18,000 a year was a good thing. And I'm one of these people who every time hydro puts up their rates, I think, yay, it makes my business model look so much better. But I think investment interest in doing this has changed, but I will say that our, when you bring on new partners or angel investors or equity partners or non-equity investors, you really need to be careful that they are really committed to the mission and not just committed to the fad. Because when the going gets tough, and it always does, around second stage, growth stage, okay, we can't serve any more customers, we need to grow, we need more money. And when the going gets to that level, you can start to see the commitment to those kinds of ideals really wane very, very quickly. And so, yeah, just it's great at the beginning. Wait 3 or 5 years when you borrow money and somebody says, you know what, I want my money back now, or I want more on the next round of money. I've found that that's when it's been really hard to, it's hard to keep them onto the story when you have to put the money down to continue the story.
Did you find there was a big difference in attitudes between the banks, private equity, angel investors, and so on, or do you?
Banks definitely were the lowest on the rung in terms of understanding any of that stuff. But and I do agree they've changed a little bit. We became a case study for BDC after a while. But having said that, I would say private investors, even and angel investors, be careful because this is going to not sound right, but a lot of these people grew up in the last 50 years going to MBA schools and dealing with investments, and really haven't internalized the new way of thinking about business and investment to that depth. So at the end of the day, when the push comes to shove at a board meeting and somebody says, but we really need to do profit maximization, that's what we owe, that is still there in a very deep way, because everybody who's been to business school, probably here as well, or anybody over the age of 35, I don't know, has been taught that that was the role of business. And indeed, the court system supports that you can be sued if profit maximization isn't what you're doing as a director, let's say, on a for-profit corporation. So it's still embedded in our business culture, and it's the refuge that people go to when they're unsure of how to make sense of the new business environment. So that's all I caution around. I think it has changed and is changing, but be careful because that cultural training that's so well embedded comes up when the going gets tough.
It's very good advice. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Hi.
One of the lessons of RIM versus Apple is it's one thing to create a niche, RIM. It's another to be complacent, do very little before someone else, Apple, comes along and is now the new game in town. You've all worked hard on version 1.0 of your businesses. What are you looking at now to go 2.0 in your respective businesses?
Good question.
In my case, the product is South Asian food, and anyone can make it. You go out to a South Asian restaurant, you'll get good food. In my case, the whole brand, the whole environmental and social values that are built into my brand, the whole package is hard to replicate. You can go to a South Asian restaurant, but you won't get what I'm doing. You will get your meal delivered by any South Asian restaurant. It won't be a litterless meal in a tiffin that doesn't cause any pollution. It may not be a vegan meal. I don't know of any South Asian restaurant that delivers to you that's a plant-based meal. So there's some things in there that I'm building into my brand that will give me a long-term benefit. I actually parted ways with a potential investor over the menu. You won't believe this. He was adamant that I would have a bigger customer base if I put butter chicken on my menu. He's right, but that goes against what I'm doing here, a plant-based menu. Plant-based meals are the most sustainable way to eat, and I wasn't going to compromise on that. So I don't want to be like any other South Asian restaurant that serves butter chicken and naan bread and all that. So I am trying to create a niche and keeping in mind that I have to be different and I have to keep this value proposition whole. It has to be a clean message marketing-wise, but not just a marketing message. It has to trickle right through the brand and be authentic. So.
I find basically it's a cleaning service that we're offering. So the place has to look like it's brand new all the time. I've got security cameras in the main lobby, so I've never had graffiti in them, not even in the bathroom. People respect it because they feel they're being respected, that I'm keeping it clean. My father was a grade 8 educated immigrant that came here, and the value that he's taught me about his two main business lessons that was more than my university was worth was he had two things that he said were the most important things in being a business. The first was treat your customers well, and the second one was treat your customers well. People will stay with you if you're respecting them. You know, price increases come and go. I just had to do one this year regarding the HST. If you're honest with people and you know, I explained it to them. Listen, this is what the reason was. I put a big notice up explaining it wasn't just, sorry, prices have changed. I wanted to let them understand this is where this is coming from, and you know, I didn't lose a customer over it.
Well, if it's about 2.0, one of the things that happens to successful little new startups, and is as soon as you get to be a little bit too successful, nobody pays attention to you when you're $100,000 worth of revenue. But you start pulling in $1.5 million a year, people start thinking, oh, this is worth paying attention to, not just investors, but also your competitors. So it is important, aka the RIM story, to stay up and above. But you can do that in a number of different ways, and I'll start with one. When you design your business at the outset, be very good at designing what your differentiation and replicatability of that differentiation message actually is. Because just like all of it, you know, a long time ago, people on balance sheets used to value land, assets, and equipment, and that's it. And then over time, people started to put value on branding and goodwill, which is hard to value. And I would argue that the next stage for valuation or balance sheets has to be how do you put a value on the quality of differentiation and also the quality of your environmental and social investments, which is part of the metrics thing. A lot of differentiations that new companies start up are hard to protect. And I felt that we designed one good one into ours, which is county terroir. So you can't have Fifth Town cheese unless you're sourcing from goats and sheep eating county hay. So as a result, all the farms have to grow their own hay and they can't import anything. But that was sort of the one thing we thought that if Saputo tomorrow re-engineered or reverse engineered my cheese and brought out a similar cheese, they still couldn't say it had county terroir. But I think quality of your differentiation is one measure of how fast you have to worry about 2.0. And the next thing is, yes, you have to worry about 2.0. And 2.0 for us, to be honest, as an entrepreneur whose head's been in this space so deeply, I'm making one of those classic entrepreneurial mistakes, which is, oh, I'm just lucky I'm still here after 3 years. I'm not sure I need to start thinking about 2.0. So thanks for reminding me that. But you can get, once you're operational, you know, it's so encompassing that 2.0 seems like,
no, absolutely.
you know, oh my God, 2.0, yes. So I'm going to make, I made a note.
But the other thing, if I could add to that, I just thought about it. One of my marketing profs from the university days said, you need to keep abreast with the values of society of today. So for example, you know, Pepsi and Coke, when they formed their products back then, whenever it was formed, what are they doing now? If you look at Pepsi and Coke, what are there? It's sugary drinks. And all of us say, you know, that's not a growing business. Gosh, you know, they need to diversify. They need to do something else to keep it going. Just like that, all companies, we need to keep abreast with what's going on in society today. And to me, what's going on in society, the environment is huge. And look at what the Occupy movement is about. It's about the poor not having enough and the rich, you know, the middle class disappearing pretty much. So then companies like mine are exactly, you know, gravitating to that. Environmental values and social hiring are a huge part of what I'm doing. And I hope if, you know, values change, that we can keep up with whatever the future is. I mean, that's what survival of any company is. You got to keep abreast with values of society out there.
Can I just add one last thing about 2.0, which I want to say is that sometimes for entrepreneurs, 2.0 is knowing what your exit strategy is. Sometimes you're not the right person to go 2.0. You're really good at 1.0 and then selling out. So having that part of your thinking when you start a business, I think, is important as well.
Maybe 2.0 is no fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have just enough time. We'll just do these last 5 questions, and maybe the question you're asking, if you want to direct it to one person or just have one person answer each one so everyone gets a chance, a couple minutes each. So please, thank you.
What are the few major or minor steps you're likely to take if you find suddenly competition springing up and your competitors have much deeper pocket than you?
I didn't hear the end of that. Did you guys hear that?
No.
Could you say that again, please? Just the end.
What are the few major or minor steps you would like to take if you find competition springing up and your competitors have much deeper pocket than you do?
Okay. Who wants to answer that?
I can take that.
Yeah.
For myself, we've basically created a business. It's kind of an innovator in our business. I'm looking forward to competition. I haven't seen it in 5 years. Competition will just expand the brand. It's similar to Coke being number one. What made the brand bigger? Pepsi joining the fray. So I welcome competition. It'll just get the message out that much easier.
Great, thanks.
Question for Petra, just your experience with private equity. Are they passive investors or are they active investors? What kind of horizon are they looking for, and have they demanded too much of your business?
Actually, in our case, both private equity investors were, it was both loans and no interest for 5 years. They expected to pay back, but we're going to be patient. And they did expect a slightly above market, or, not a, well, I can't even say this anymore, but in the old days when stocks and bonds paid off much higher. So they're looking like for 5%, so a reasonable return on investment, but they were interested in the message and the work. So that was sort of the terms. In terms of, how should I say, there are goals and objectives. Yeah, I would say 3 to 5 years that they wanted their money back, but were patient. But things change for private equity investors too, and depending on who you got on board, if suddenly something happens to them and they need to pull their money out tomorrow, they always have a clause where that can be done. There's always that sort of thing. So you really have to craft those agreements carefully and plan for the worst case scenario as well as the best case. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's...
Right. And just whether they were active or passive.
Active or passive. Both were pretty passive, but I would say, I have to tell you, I wanted to recruit investors who were active.
Sure.
This drove me nuts because I needed advice and I needed people, and I wanted them to be a lot more active. And at the beginning, they were interested in it, but then these are people who run $30 billion worth of assets of other things. I mean, they're not, my little cheese thing happening is not the major part of their day. So I would say that I personally prefer, now having gone through this, I mean, money is money, so and some people like passive, but I really wanted the power of their expertise and their networks to work for my business, and that was hard to harness in the end. And I would have preferred probably some in between, not a meddling partner, but one that could leverage their network and their assets and their knowledge in a way that would help the business grow.
Thanks.
Money is just money.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my question is for Siba. First of all, congratulations. I'm an idealist too, and I love your project. How do you plan to measure social impact? I've been in the field, I'm very young, but I work for a huge company. We're doing CSR, and I was in charge with a big team developing a tool to measure our social impact, and it was a nightmare for a year.
Yes.
But how do you plan to do that and communicate that to the end customer, which I
Yes.
think we have to do a lot of education that this matters and
Yes.
this is important, but people want numbers. So.
Yes, no, you're right, and measurement is a huge part of it. There are measurement metrics through the B Corp that are in place for social hiring, but a very simple metrics for me right now is how many people can I hire? The women that want to work for me want to work part-time. How many women can I hire and support in my business who can work, the 4 or 5 hours per day and give them a permanent part-time job? That's my measurement at the end of the day. Okay, thanks.
Good evening. I have a two-part question. One of them is, being new in the business, how did you overcome the challenge of getting your initial clients? And also, at different stages of your business, would you segment your clients in different segments? And the reason for my question is that I'm currently developing a startup consulting business that specializes in marketing and training. What I have experienced is that when we put some of the RFPs, they're not only asked for references, but specific projects that we have done. And even though we have the knowledge, we have the experience, educations, MBAs, law degree, they still request for those facts. So I want to ask you, how did you overcome that challenge? Thank you, if one of you can
The
answer.
credibility building, yeah.
Can I grab that one? You work for free for a while. That's what you do. You take on some assignments, do it pro bono, build up your rep, work for free. It's part of your, build it into your business plan as market development, business development costs, and that's how you get there from here.
For how long did you do it yourself?
How long is this
Far
gonna
too
be?
long. I gave away a lot of cheese. You know, it's you got to give to get, and you do a lot of giving first. So yeah, I gave away a lot of cheese, donated to charities, fundraising events, because at the beginning I had a few people who would buy the cheese, who I knew, you know, but your network's only so big, and you have to grow fast. You can't, you know, once you've got your capital in the ground, you got to make money, so you don't have time to mess around. So I did a lot of donations and a lot of, if you're having an event for a poet who died 100 years ago and you need cheese to go with your wine, I was there. So that's what we did. And that built up the reputation. It gave people a chance to try it, and then that turned them into customers after that. So I think consulting would be the same way. They need to taste what you're selling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, it's great. Last question.
My question is for Seema. I was just very interested to know more about the time that you limited your sales to 25 per day. How did you manage to do that without disappointing your customers?
Well, we put actually a very interesting message on our website, and even today when I reach capacity, we put that on. The first line on there says, we have an embarrassment of riches. Our humble little company has reached, you know, its maximum capacity. You come across as being a small business that's really trying. It's not an arrogant statement saying, you know, screw you, I can't serve you. Oop, did I use a bad word there? No, you don't say that. We're still a humble little company. They need to know that, you know, we only have an hour to deliver our meals. We're working with a social enterprise to do that. If we can't do it, you need to be honest and say up front, you know, we can't serve you today, but please come back another day. Our menu is still open for the rest of the month. Please pick another day and we'd be delighted to serve you. And that's how I overcame that.
Honesty, there you go.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we're just going to end with having each entrepreneur give one piece of advice to the budding entrepreneurs in the room who are thinking of starting up a business. Who wants to go first?
Don't do it. Good. No, actually, can I go first?
Go ahead.
No, I
You
say
did.
that
You did.
jokingly, but
Yeah.
today I was actually looking at a video that the wonderful group at Mars Media had done on Tiffin Day. And I was just looking at it because I was here and I, you know, said, oh, what did I say back then? Because let's see if it holds true. And one thing that I noticed is I have lost 35 pounds. I was a chubby girl in that video. No, make sure if you're going to do this, it is hard work. It will take a toll on you. Don't expect it to be easy financially. For me, my work is physical. There's a lot of lifting, and it's, you know, a lot of, I mean, this is repetitive rolling of rotis. You know, it is physical. I used to have a desk job before that. I did a desk job for 25 years. I am happier now than I have ever been. I have breakfast and dinner with my son. If you're going to do this, make sure you have your core values, you know, identified. Make sure you love what you do before you jump in. Because if you're not going to love it, if you're not going to be passionate about it, keep your job, you know, get your paycheck every 2 weeks, have your medical plan, you know, all the stuff I miss. But no, I am happier than I am. Make sure you have passion for it.
I would say just do a business plan. There's so many businesses that just open up and think they've got an open sign, they're going to have customers. Make sure you do a business plan. Check out what your expectations are. Love what you do and treat your customers well. And that will, your price point doesn't have the most important effect on customers. If they really like what you're doing, they'll pay extra if that's the niche you're looking for. And you just have to keep them happy and they'll keep coming back.
And this is probably going to sound like a platitude in some sense, but the ability to be very adaptable and change with whatever gets thrown at you. I didn't certainly expect 120-day terms from major grocery stores, and that's why I loved your business with no receivables. I thought, yes, how do I make a cheese business with no receivables? And unlike Seema, I gained 35 pounds after being in the cheese business. But so there's that too. I'm going to say it this way: I had a business before I went into corporate life, and as a serial entrepreneur, I would say this: you need to expect to fail. because you will, and it may not maybe the business doesn't fail, but the big deal you were hoping for will, or the big customer doesn't come through, or in the case of food, you have CFIA come through and tell you you have $100,000 of renovations to make. You will find things like that, and you will find moments where, or you may actually, or maybe a business might actually fail. And I think what I see affecting lots of entrepreneurs is the inability to personally deal with that, and that puts them off on a path that may not be the best idea. So while you're busy learning how to be an entrepreneur, launching a business, make sure you do a lot of self-development around how you're going to feel if your first venture goes belly up, and how you're going to feel when your second venture goes belly up, and how great you're going to feel when, because of persistence, your third venture made you as rich as Steve Jobs. So you just need to learn to know that that's part, and I think any entrepreneur who's been around for a lot of years knows that that's part of the deal. And one of the best presentations I saw was from a veteran entrepreneur at Rotman, and he did a net worth statement over 50 years. He was in his 70s. And he charted his net worth, starting out as a student and buying a house, and then it goes up and up and up, then leaving his job and starting a company, losing everything, moving into a one-bedroom apartment with 4 kids, and then coming back up out of that. But he had the benefit of this 50 years of hindsight, and what you saw was the line actually went up, but it certainly wasn't straight. And the fortitude of crawling out of that the crevice below, can make for a very interesting lifestyle, actually. So plan on an entrepreneurial lifestyle, not just an entrepreneurial job.
Very much so. It is not for the faint of heart. Well, thank you very much to the panel. That was excellent.